Welcome, everybody, to the First Name Basis podcast. This is where we chat with industry leaders, special guests about tech and innovation and what's happening in the world. And today with me, we got someone who's in a lot of demand as we've gone into this COVID world. Today, I got Nick Patrick, who's co-founder and CEO of Radar. Welcome, Nick, to the First Name Basis podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Nick, before we jump into Radar, I always like to chat with our guests about their entrepreneurial journey. How did you even come about to start an organization like Radar? What's some of your background, your history?
Yeah, sure. So I've been a nerd for a long time. Back in middle school, high school, I was always sort of hacking on side projects and building websites and learning how to code. Studied computer science in undergrad and decided that I didn't want to be a programmer per se. Wanted to do something that was a little bit more, kind of businessy, designy, and discovered product management as a career path. So started my career as a PM at Microsoft, took a little business school detour, then worked at Foursquare. And long story short, got a lot of exposure to interesting products and use cases around location, which led me to start Radar.
Which is awesome. I mean, Foursquare, what a story, right? Like you guys and Dennis and everything you guys did in New York. We actually had Nahal Mehta on from ENIAC just last week, and he was talking a lot about location and how he worked with location and this awesome growth of startups that came out in New York City around that time. So how'd you make the transition to start Radar? What spawned you to say, hey, there's a huge gap here? How'd you identify the problem and how'd you jump into it?
Yeah. So I was the first product person at Handy, which was an on-demand services startup here in New York. Basically an Uber for cleaning and handyman services. And we wanted to build this Uber style, track your cleaner on a map, right? Your booking is about to start. Are they on their way? Have they arrived? Are they 5 minutes late? And went down this path of building it ourselves, thinking naively it would be a super easy thing to build. And, we put an iOS engineer on it, an Android engineer on it, server engineer, web engineer. Turned out to be really challenging to build. Everything from how do you, do background location tracking in an accurate yet battery efficient way? How do you display this data on a map? How do you route this data to different systems? And, long story short, reflecting on it after I left, when we wanted to do payments, we just popped in Stripe. When we wanted to do analytics, we just popped in Mixpanel. We wanted to send a text message, we just popped in Twilio. And there was no great full stack developer-friendly solution for location. So that was kind of the initial inspiration for Radar, and then married it to some of the more consumery location experiences that I had worked on in the past.
And we're seeing this more and more now. As we do at TribalScale, we love building software, but we always look and say, hey, where's the build versus buy here? Why can't we just always use a supported product? Because many companies are feeling the same challenges. And so you guys are doing this for location. You're actually bringing a whole bunch of different APIs and even cutting edge use cases when it comes to location. So let's talk a little bit about the world. I mean, location-based functionality is just getting more and more important, even if you look at contact tracing right now in this COVID world. But what are some of the things that you're seeing that the world needs when it comes to location right now?
Yeah, I think one of the sort of fun but also challenging things about location, and this is something that we aim to help our customers with, is it's always evolving. It's always changing, right? Last year we were talking to a lot of our customers about building in-store experiences and on-trip experiences. And obviously with the COVID-19 pandemic, people are moving around less and less. But they still are moving around.
But if they're moving around, they got to go efficiently now.
That's exactly right. So we're starting to see new use cases and trends emerge. One of the big trends that we're seeing is curbside pickup and delivery and contactless payments. Trend that we're starting to see is not so much contact tracing. I think location can be of limited use when it comes to contact tracing specifically, but in the same way that you might get location-based recommendations historically, maybe you're getting density-based recommendations in the future. Is this park too crowded? Is this workplace too crowded? Maybe I should go somewhere else instead. So location is more important than ever, but the use cases are shifting, and obviously there are a whole other set of macro trends that make building with location fun, but also challenging.
So let's talk a little bit about the restaurant industry. I think we all, at least during this pandemic, at least once have gone and said, okay, let us try to order some takeout or get some delivery, and now you're trying to do it with the most amount of efficiency of not coming into contact with anyone else. What are some of the Radar solutions that you guys have been you guys have already built, you've been doing this for a while, but what are some of the ones that are coming high in demand right
Yeah, I think what I will say is the economy is going to come back online sooner or later, we believe, and so how do you sort of re-engage and reactivate your customers when restaurants do reopen, right?
now?
Ideally, if you open an app or go on a website, you're seeing a different experience based on is your state open or closed, for example. Assuming you are placing an order, maybe you're getting it delivered to you, in which case it's great to be able to see, hey, your delivery is 5 minutes away. You should sort of prepare to come downstairs and pick it up or whatever. Or you might have a curbside pickup use case where, if you're going to order a burger, you're going to order a coffee or whatever, how do you make sure that that's, hot and ready for you as soon as you arrive, right?
So timing becomes a very key issue.
Yeah, there can be a sort of time-based scheduling component to it, but you can also have a location-based component to it as well, where maybe you're a little bit early or you're a little bit late. How do you as a consumer know what to do when you arrive at the restaurant or when you pull into the parking lot or whatever? You can have a location-based component that makes the experience better, makes the process more efficient for everyone involved.
So one of the things that really intrigued me about when I started talking to you guys is this whole notion of being able to click and collect from your retailer. Hey, I want to order a bunch of stuff from Home Depot, let's say. I pull up to Home Depot. Please be ready, and just put it in my car, put it in my trunk, and off I go. A lot of retailers are struggling with this. And you guys got some solutions that are very pertinent, not only to the consumer behavior of when going there, but all the stuff that happens in the background for a place like Home Depot. And I'm just using them obviously as an example here, but
Sure.
A place like Home Depot or any large hardware store for that matter, who then needs to go and figure out how to even get that stuff on in a timely way outside for you.
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the big things that we're observing is that every retailer, every QSR is a little bit different, right? They might use different in-store systems. They might have different operational needs in store. Our ethos at Radar has always been to be the most developer-friendly, flexible platform. We don't want to be a one-size-fits-all solution for this. We'd much rather provide flexible building blocks, and maybe that takes the form of integrating with some in-store systems. Maybe it's just you're setting up a webhook or you're setting up some connection to any custom system. But long story short, I think we're trying to maybe attack this space in a new way where there are some turnkey one-size-fits-all solutions out there. We're mainly focused on how do we provide a flexible, versatile solution that can solve whatever your use case is now and plug into whatever systems you're using now. But your needs may change in the future, right? I don't think any of us saw a global pandemic coming last fall. Sure. And the last thing you want to do is
change overnight in the weekend, which is unrealistic for many of these retailers to just.
You want to be able to move fast, and you want to be able to adapt to changing use cases and needs in the future as well.
So let's take that retail example again. You guys actually have some cool time and location-based APIs, right? Where you'll know, hey, in traffic during this time, it'll take me 15 minutes to get somewhere. So if someone was picking my order, I should get a notification, hey, it's time for me to leave now, or let's say. What are some, and I love that because that's a great example of, hey, something that as a consumer, you're oblivious to what's actually happening down the pipe. Sure. What are some other cool use cases like that of where location comes in super handy to bring operational effectiveness to some of your partners?
Yeah, we see location use cases falling into a couple different buckets. I think the first is location-based content, right? If you open an app and you're sitting at home on your couch versus at the airport versus at the store versus maybe in a new city, you should see content that's relevant to your current location, relevant to your current context. And so Radar can help with that. I think another bucket of use cases is messaging. So this is kind of the classic geofencing use case.
Just on that use case, the next time I'm in the Cayman Islands and I'm chilling on the beach, the content or even the advertising I should be seeing should be like, hey, go to Stingray City. Right?
How do you help people? How do you serve people relevant information, help them find what they need faster, right? If I'm using a travel app, I probably should see a different experience when I'm sitting at home on my couch, maybe browsing for my next trip versus I'm on a trip and I'm at the airport or I'm at a hotel about to check in. Sure. And so it's about helping people, access relevant content, get what they need faster, surfacing the right experience for a user. It's a better user experience, but from a business perspective, it also, boosts conversion rates, makes users more engaged, things like that.
Cool. And So let's talk a little bit about contact tracing. This is something that's coming up in the media all the time. I'm not even going to get into the politics of it, of people saying, oh, it's good or it's not good. But what are some effective ways you see contact tracing being used to help solve the challenges of today, especially in this pandemic?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that's sort of interesting or challenging about contact tracing is you need to be very precise, right? And, GPS location services on a smartphone often can't get down to that, 6-foot radius, right? You need something a little bit more precise. Apple and Google have realized kind of the importance and the value of this, and they've launched new contact tracing APIs built directly into the OS. Notably does not use location, but uses Bluetooth. So, a phone can range another phone, a phone can range a beacon, and be a little bit more precise. I think where location can be useful is less in contact tracing use cases, but more in sort of understanding density or sort of routing folks in the right direction. I mentioned 2 examples earlier. Is this park too crowded? Maybe you should go to a different park instead.
Yeah.
How many people think about a workforce management use case? How many people are at the office right now? Maybe there are too many people there, so you should stay home today or whatever. So we're not helping with contact tracing per se. I think there are technologies like Bluetooth that are a little bit better suited to that, and Apple and Google sort of discourage use of location services in contact tracing apps. But when it comes to density-based recommendations and other sort of operational use cases related to COVID, we can certainly help there.
So when you look at contact tracing, privacy always becomes an issue, right? And so what are some ethical standards? What is being used right now to make sure not only are your customers using the data ethically, is there a standard out there? What's the rule book when it comes to user privacy?
Yeah, I think in general, we encourage our customers to follow a couple different best practices. I think the first is getting clear consent and opt-in from the user. The user should know what information they're sharing and what they're signing up for. I think the second thing is, the user should get value out of giving up that data, right? There should be something in it for them. And we actually don't allow developers on our platform that aren't delivering value for an end user experience. And so I think those are the 2 most important things. It's how can you get clear opt-in and consent from a user, and is there something in it for the user? And I think all these different use cases can kind of come down to that. It's I as a user should know what I'm signing up for, and I should be getting value out of whatever it is that I'm signing up for.
Mm-hmm. And so what about companies taking this data and selling the data or doing other things with the data? What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I mean, listen, location data obviously is valuable, right? And advertisers might want to use it to target ads, right? Maybe you want to show ads to somebody who, has been to Taco Bell in the past, for example. It's valuable to hedge funds, right? Hedge funds might want to trade on this data as foot traffic for this retail chain.
I mean, the whole Foursquare example of being able to predict iPhone sales before Apple even releases the numbers, right?
So there's definitely value there, and obviously a lot of folks in the ecosystem doing that. It's something that we pretty early on in our company lifecycle decided that we're not going to do as a company. We're a SaaS company. We're not a data company. In the same way that I think a good analogy is there isn't a single e-commerce site that I've used in the past couple years that doesn't know my exact home address, have my credit card information, and e-commerce sites are going to use sub processors to process and store and handle that data. They might use AWS, they might use Stripe. I wouldn't expect Stripe to turn around and resell my credit card transaction history to a hedge fund. They're just a SaaS company. They're just pipes. They're just infrastructure. But historically, there have been a lot of companies in the location space that give tools away in exchange for the data, and then kind of repackage and resell that data. And we as a company don't do that. That's not something that we do at Radar. We're a SaaS company. We help our customers collect location data, build great app experiences for users with clear opt-in, but we don't turn around and repackage or resell that data in any way.
And privacy is a big concern. You guys got some pretty big brand names. I don't know if you could publicly talk about some of them, but you got some very big names that are currently working with you, who also take a pretty strong stance on privacy, right? And so it's great to see that you follow that ethical line and then say, okay, anything outside of it, hey, don't even work with us. And again, you're just a plumbing also.
Yeah, I think that's right. And, we're plumbing, but we also do help with compliance, right? There are obviously, laws like GDPR and CCPA that place burdens on companies that collect this data to be able to say, if a user wants their data deleted or if a user wants to retrieve their data, they need to be able to fulfill that request. And so we offer tools for that in the form of APIs or data retention policies. But a lot of the companies that we work with chose us specifically because of our approach to privacy and because we plug into this ecosystem of other SaaS products that help people respect privacy and manage consent and opt in similar ways.
So could you bucket your APIs in like certain buckets to say, hey, like these are 5 key buckets of features that we're able to provide any person, any company out there that's looking to build location-based software or has a need for location-based software?
Yeah, maybe I'll talk about how companies would integrate Radar, how developers would integrate Radar. 3 really simple steps. The first is to integrate our SDK. Typically, we have iOS, Android, and web SDKs that basically make it possible for you to add location tracking or location context to your apps in just a couple lines of code. Once you do that, then you can set up geofences or call APIs depending on your use case, right? So you may want to set up geofences around a specific set of stores or a specific set of airports or a specific set of neighborhoods or whatever. We have geofences in the form of a place database that you can tap into, admin boundaries like states or countries or zip codes. So the second step is sort of setting up that context, configuring the view of the world that makes sense for you. And then the third step is setting up integrations or routing that data to a place that you can act on it, right? So in the context of the curbside pickup example we talked through earlier, you might pop in the SDK, start location tracking when a curbside pickup starts. You're going to set up geofences around the store or maybe corresponding to 5 minutes away driving from the store. And then when a user enters those geofences, maybe you're going to trigger events. You're going to send them a push notification saying, hey, welcome to the burger joint, pull into this parking space, or you're going to notify an in-store system. So that's kind of the typical integration flow. We have a number of different APIs that you can call as well, things like geocoding or autocomplete. If you've ever used the Uber app and you've typed in a destination, maybe it's an address or a place name, you need to be able to turn that into a lat long and drop that pin on a map. So we have APIs
I've screwed up
that.
so many times by being a little fuzzy at 2:30 in the morning.
And even if it's not 2:30 in the morning and you're a little bit fuzzy, right? It's important to be able to do that in an accurate way, right? Do you have all the addresses or places in your database? And there are a lot of providers out there. They're generally very expensive and very restrictive or inflexible. So again, we're taking this approach of affordable, flexible, easy to use. And we have other APIs like APIs for search. Maybe you're building a store locator. Or routing or distance calculation as well. So at the end of the day, we're in the business of helping people build great product and service experiences with location. We give you a number of different building blocks that you can snap together in different ways depending on your use case.
For sure. So we talked a little bit about e-commerce. We talked about restaurants. We've talked about transportation companies. One of the cool things that I saw that when speaking to you guys is that you work with the entertainment and sports world. And how are you guys working with the entertainment and sports world? What are some of the use cases that you're seeing over there?
Yeah, I think, we work with a couple different fantasy sports and gambling companies. I think there's an interesting, movement to, own the sort of live sports gambling experience, right? So you imagine you show up at a stadium and you can sort of unlock functionality in an app when you're at a stadium. Right. You can imagine kind of ticketing app use cases where maybe you're reminded to use your e-ticket, or you can access some set of special content or special features when you're at the stadium. Obviously use cases are shifting here as well because there's not going to be a ton of people at live sporting events or concerts this year. But there are ways you can still engage users and interact with users based on location. Maybe you're reaching out to users in particular zip codes where minor league baseball is coming back online or whatever. So I think, again, it all sort of falls in the same buckets of location-based content in the app, location-based search, messaging based on your location, and operational use cases as well.
I can't wait for our sports to come back. I'm losing my mind.
Same. I've been watching the Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary. It's got me wanting the NBA to come back.
Ever since it came out, I don't think I've done a podcast where we haven't talked about The Last Dance. One of the moments that always keeps coming up.
It's kind of inspiring as an entrepreneur because,
right? Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that always keeps coming.
Yeah.
What part inspired you as an entrepreneur? I mean, there's many for me, but name something.
Well, I'm only halfway through it, so no spoilers.
Enough.
But I think obviously aiming to be the best at your craft and working hard day in and day out. Sort of being ruthless, building an incredible team that can execute on this vision. It's a little bit different in sports versus startups, obviously, but those are things that me and my co-founder Kobe think about a lot as well.
Love it. All right, we're going to take a little break from the radar stuff. I've been doing this more recently, but I want to rapid fire some questions off to you, just so we all get to know you a little bit better. So let's start with the first one. You said you like sports. What's your favorite sport?
I went to college at Duke, so I'm a huge college basketball fan, big Duke Blue Devils fan.
Christian Leitner was like the best thing that happened there.
Yeah, he was a little bit before my time. I was like right at the end of the JJ Redick era.
Yeah.
But and from Baltimore, so I'm a big Ravens and Orioles fan. I don't play sports a ton myself. I ran cross country in high school, and I've been trying to get back into running during quarantine. It's a good way to get outside and get some fresh air. But I watch a ton of sports for sure.
Cool. I'm plugging small businesses and especially restaurants. If the pandemic lifts tomorrow, where's the first place you're going to go out and eat?
Yeah, so I actually live in Jersey City, New Jersey, right across the water from Manhattan. My wife is a doctor and works at Rutgers, so it's kind of a nice halfway point.
She's doing like your hats off to her and everybody else out there.
Yeah, it's certainly been an interesting and challenging time for them, and they're doing pretty awesome work. Yeah, we've actually had a couple restaurants in the neighborhood stay open, which has been kind of cool. Getting creative, selling bottled cocktails, or awesome. Kind of figuring out ways that you can punch in an order on the app and walk up and pick it up. So there is a fried chicken place near us called Bob White Counter. There's a sausage place called Worst Bar, and we've been eating there probably more than we should. I don't know if you should be eating fried chicken sandwiches more than once, twice a week.
I think everybody's gaining 10 to 12 pounds by now, man. I mean, all of us have just been sitting around the house.
That's why you got to run. That's why you got to run too. You can eat it up. Yeah,
for sure. If you could fly anywhere, where would you go?
I was just I was very lucky. I did a couple things right before the pandemic kicked in. I got a haircut, so it is getting a little crazy. So I'm trying to contain it with this hat.
My shag is afro in, and it's not stopping. I'm letting it just do whatever it does on its own now. I gave up.
Yep. But I also was lucky enough to take a vacation to Hawaii, which was my first time in Hawaii. It was really cool. We went to Maui and Oahu. And we've already been sort of scheming to take our next trip. I think we're going to go to Kauai and the Big Island this time. So I don't know if we're going to do it as soon as we can fly again, but it's
definitely one of the
pretty
best
high on the top for us.
We'll go back to. Cool. Yep. Congrats! You guys recently raised a ton of money. Talk to us a little bit about your funding rounds and how that went.
Yeah, we were lucky enough to raise a Series B from Excel last fall. Again, sort of not knowing that a global pandemic was imminent. So it's nice to have, kind of flexibility and runway there. Excel also led our seed round, and we got to know them pretty well over the years. Excel has this thesis on sort of the API-ification of everything. I spoke at their APX conference last year, and they believe that there's going to be this universal location layer for every product and service on every device. We've gotten to know them; they've gotten to know us, and so they invested and led our Series B, which was really cool. We raised a Series A from Two Sigma Ventures, New York City-based venture firm, very focused on data and data science. They've been awesome to work with, and our pre-seed round was led by Expa, which is a startup studio started by Garrett Camp, who's one of the founders of Uber, and Naveen, one of the founders of Foursquare. So very lucky to have great investors who've been supportive.
You got a who's who list there going, which is awesome. Great testament to what you guys.
It's a great set of investors. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great set of investors. So what's going to go next? What are you going to use the funding for? How do you guys proceed?
Yeah, the evolution of our product and our offering has been one of increasing the set of building blocks that we offer, right? So we kind of started with just geofencing. We then added new context types, out of the box geofences over time. Just launched a bunch of new APIs. I think we're thinking about how we can obviously scale those and make those great, but also think about what other building blocks we can introduce as well. We are going to be launching very soon kind of easier ways to get started using Radar. Signing up and sort of unlocking more capacity, punching in your credit card. We'll be talking about that more soon. And then obviously just growing the team.
Very cool. So well, walk me through that. Like, so how would the use case change from today if I implemented Radar, and what you're looking to do now in the future?
I don't think the use cases necessarily change. I think we're always thinking about ways to make it easier to get started and start building, and we just want to lower the barriers to get started. So that's something that we're going to be talking about. Yep.
Cool. Are you guys what's your client base at? Like, is it North America? Like, where have you started getting traction? Where are you seeing, or is there places outside of even North America that are implementing your product and you're like, whoa, I didn't even think of that use case, or they're doing amazing things? What are some like outside edge cases that you were surprised to see?
Yeah, we work with a lot of customers in North America, but we do support use cases and customers globally. We have a lot of customers in Europe. I think part of the reason for that is with GDPR, European customers are very conscious of data privacy, and they look for vendors, they look for partners that can help them navigate that stuff. We work with a company called Traveloka, based in Indonesia, and very cool use cases. They're sort of a travel aggregator, but they offer, not just travel booking use cases, but other types of booking experiences as well. There's actually another trip that I was lucky enough to take before the pandemic hit, where I went and actually visited them in Indonesia, in Jakarta. It turns out that a lot of the shopping takes place in these huge multi-story malls over there. Right. So sort of interesting use cases, interesting needs around not just geofencing malls, but
you do this. You go into like an office building, and it's like you're walking, or sometimes you feel like you're in an apartment building, and then all of a sudden there's a shop.
Right. So, I think the use cases are largely the same, and people want to build great location-based experiences. They want to do it in a privacy-conscious way. But, like based in North America, largely focused on North America, but do support customers around the world, and obviously have global ambitions in the long term.
Cool. We got a question from online, and they are asking, how can location data possibly help the travel industry?
Yeah. One of the conversations we've been having a lot recently is how can location be used to improve the on-trip experience, right? So I sort of alluded to some of this a little bit earlier, but it's one thing to book a trip. It's another thing to show up at the airport, land in a new city, check into your hotel, and ideally you have a companion that's with you every step of the way, that's sort of helping you access your boarding pass, helping you find your gate. You land in a new city. Hey, where should I go? What should I do? Which transit should I take? When I arrive at the hotel, remind me to check in. When I leave the hotel, remind me to leave a review. When I'm in a new neighborhood, suggest cool bars or restaurants or museums when I'm nearby, right? Obviously, COVID makes all of this challenging, and folks are traveling less, but we do believe it's going to come back.
It's going to come back, yeah.
And when they do come back, how can you sort of reactivate and re-engage your users based on where they are, right? Because different countries and different regions are going to come back online at different rates, and God forbid, maybe sort of cycle back off and cycle back on, and you need to be adaptable. So I think location can improve almost every part of the travel experience, and at the end of the day, the way you build, loyalty with your customers is to deliver great experiences. And, location is obviously essential to everything about travel.
So look, as you guys are expanding and you're obviously starting to get a global presence, we're going into a distributed workplace right now. What are you doing for offices? Like, what do you got? How are you guys going to operate?
Yeah, we're all remote right now, and I think we will be for the foreseeable future. Most of us are based in New York City. I think New York City is going to start coming back online in June. we're going to be very thoughtful about how we reopen the offices. Like I think we've sort of settled into a groove working remotely, and we've all been very productive. But I think a lot of folks are itching to get back. And
I for one am very much so itching to get back to an office.
I think we work hard, but we have fun too. And I think folks are missing the happy hours. They're missing the team lunches. They're missing the the proverbial water cooler chats. And kind of in the office too, the impromptu discussions and whiteboarding sessions and brainstorming sessions. So, TBD what the exact details are. I think we're going to be thoughtful about how we reopen. We are likely going to give folks the choice to continue working from home for the foreseeable future because we have proven to ourselves that we can be remote and be productive.
For sure.
But, we'll see. I feel like we say every 2 weeks we're going to learn a lot in the next 2 weeks, and then we learn a lot in the next 2 weeks, and there's still a lot of unknowns, but we're going to be finalizing a plan here relatively soon.
Cool. We got another question online too. Actually, a couple of them are coming through. How large is your team?
Yeah, we're about 35 people now, and we came into the year at about 25. We came into 2019 at about 8. So the team is growing really fast, and really talented team too. I think one of the most fun things for me is hiring people better than me at various functions, whether it's
working alongside smart people. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And very lucky to have a really awesome team of 35 people.
Awesome. Here's another one. I think I may know the answer to this, but how is using location-based software help consumers and not just software companies?
Yeah, I think we talked about a couple examples, but how pervasive location is in apps. I think a couple examples, searching for nearby restaurants on Yelp is obviously useful and important. Hailing a ride on Uber, we mentioned sort of typing in an address and dropping a pin on the map, seeing where the driver is. Store locators in your favorite restaurant or retail app. So I think a lot of folks tend to focus on, and I believe the space has been mishandled by a lot of the traditional players, kind of think about, privacy breaches and the negatives of location. But, location really does permeate most of the apps that we use every day. And we're thinking about ways that we can help enable more location-based experiences. But again, we want to do it in a conscious way. At the end of the day, ideally you're delivering a great experience. The end user is opting in. If they want to opt in, great. If they don't want to opt in, that's totally cool too. But I would challenge anybody to think of almost any location-based functionality, even if it's just as simple as typing in an address and dropping a pin on a map.
For sure. One of the things that we found was budgets came to a complete halt. Projects came to a complete halt. I think most entrepreneurs had their sales pipelines come to a halt. What have you guys found? What happened with Radar going through this transition? Because you guys had your plan and you knew where you're going. You just raised this money, started making even more noise in the industry where people get to know who you are. Yeah. And then the pandemic hit. How has that affected you guys?
Yeah, I think it really depends based on industry, right? Obviously travel industry has gotten crushed because people aren't flying or traveling as much anymore, but they are starting to plan their next move and sort of reactivate as stuff comes back online. Retail and QSR, they're thinking about ways to deliver new types of experiences, curbside pickup, contactless payments, delivery. So if anything, use cases have shifted a little bit and we're well suited to solve those use cases as well.
Have you seen demand rise?
Yeah,
I would think so. I mean, one of the ways we started having a conversation was, I was like, hey, you guys are doing a bunch of things our customers are already asking about. And so wanted to know had you seen that replicate across the verticals that you're working in?
Yeah, certainly in some industries and some companies, demand has risen. I would say we're seeing more of a shift in demand. Where I think you're seeing a real explosion of activity is media and streaming, which we do a little bit less in, but hope to start doing more in, and kind of productivity software, obviously Slack, the Slacks Zoom, and the Netflixes of the world are, and Zoom, right? So, I think one other thing that we're seeing is,
but you guys can also kind of compare you guys to a Twilio where they're taking off too, right?
Well, I think, another trend that we're seeing is to the extent that budgets are contracting, people are trying to save money, right? And there are, I'm not going to name names, but there are other, location vendors that are quite expensive. Radar aims to offer a very flexible but also very affordable set of APIs and solutions here. And so we're having a lot of conversations with customers about switching off of more expensive vendors onto Radar, and in some cases saving tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
Okay, cool. Nick, this has been awesome, man. I think we got a lot of content out in a very quick time frame, but before we sign off, I wanted to chat with you and see, is there anything you'd love to our listeners to end off with?
Yeah, obviously if folks are thinking about building location-based experiences, we'd love to hear from you. Feel free to reach out to us at radar.io. Feel free to sign up for a free tier account and poke around. For a slightly lower commitment option, you can go to radar.io/blog and subscribe to our newsletter. And we're going to start publishing a lot more content about how location use cases are shifting, the types of things you can build, how you can do this stuff in a smart, privacy conscious way. And so radar.io, check us out. We'd love to hear from you.
I love it, man. Thanks so much for joining our podcast. This is going to be available on Apple, Google, Spotify, LinkedIn, YouTube. I go on and on and on, but this has been First Name Basis, the podcast. Nick, thank you so much for joining us, man. Super interesting. Can't wait to be engaging with you guys a lot more, and a lot of our customers who are asking for your services all the time. It's good to know that we got a partner out there who has this stuff out of the box that we can just start working with and implementing. So thanks for joining us.
This is awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Take care.
All right. Take care.